So hopefully that is now visible on the screen. Just to say, for anyone who's watching this, a very warm welcome to you. And I'm going to be talking today about why bother with mission action planning, which is, I'm sure, a very jazzy title. But I'm going to talk today about mission action planning, how this exercise, this process, prayerful process can help you plan for mission and help your church flourish and grow. So that's the kind of overarching theme of this. And I'll come onto the wheel that you can see there a bit later on and explain that a bit more. But hopefully, great. So yeah, just a quick introduction. My name is Nick Smith. I'm Church Growth Officer for Bedfordshire. My colleague Kate is covering Hertfordshire. You can get in touch with either of us if you want to have a conversation or you want to know more. We are available for all those conversations, and we can come and facilitate mission action planning in your parish if that is helpful. But just to start off with, some common attitudes that we get to mission action planning. Some people respond with great enthusiasm. Yes, we need a plan. This is fantastic. We've got a way forward. We can see how this will be helpful. Other people, the response is weariness. It's that sense of, oh gosh, this is another form to fill in. The diocese wants us to do another thing. What a pain. What a frustration. We don't have time for this. Then there's also skepticism. This exercise, this sort of slightly businessy seeming, bureaucratic seeming exercise, does that really change anything? Is this actually going to help my parish? And then lastly, cynicism. This sense that there is in some churches, some of the time, of we're all doomed. We're all doomed. So what's the point of even doing any of this? It's game over. There's nowhere to go. And whilst I have a great deal of sympathy with all of those responses, and I've probably responded that way myself in the past when asked to do this sort of task, what I would say is that this can be a really useful tool for renewing the mission of your parish, for focusing your energy, for encouraging people to be on board, to be part of what's going on, helping to kind of draw people in and get people excited. That's what we want to see as church growth officers. We want to see churches become passionate about and plan for mission, because we think as Christians we have a great message. We have a thing that people will be blessed by. And there are lots of people out there, certainly in the current culture, the way things have changed, who are searching. They are searching for hope. They are searching for meaning. And if churches can be intentional about that, then we have the opportunity for people to encounter God. And that will kind of, by proxy, grow our churches and ensure that they continue to flourish for many years to come. So just to give you a bit of a kind of an overview of what we're going to be looking at today, we'll look at the why. Why mission? Why do any of this stuff in the first place? Why do mission, let alone action planning? We'll look at the theological, missional foundations of that. We'll think a bit about the what mission action planning is. What is this thing that I am talking about? The benefits of it, why bother? The challenges, why is it that people would be resistant to it? And what, if anything, can we do about that? And then just a little bit about how it actually works as a process. And that's where we'll come back in more detail to that wheel. But let's start with the why. Why mission? And it's a basic question of why is there a church in the first place? I think often, as I go out to churches, there's often a sort of sense of churches are there to be nice, to be part of the community, to do good things. And all of that is true. But actually, there is a church there in the first place because God is, at God's heart, a sending God. Jesus, when he commissions his disciples, says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. Surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. Now, that last bit is important. It's not just us doing stuff. It is Christ through his Spirit going with us, going ahead of us. But that sense of why the church is there in the first place. This therefore go, go and make disciples, baptize them, teach them to follow Christ. The purpose of the church isn't to maintain its historic buildings, beautiful as they are. I'm currently in the church I work at, which is only 100 years old and not especially beautiful, but I still love it. But some of the churches out there are stunning. But it's not there to maintain historic buildings. It's not sort of a ecclesiastical heritage. It doesn't exist for its own members, although those who are existing members of churches obviously are important and loved and cherished. The church exists to make new disciples and then to baptize them, to bring them into the life of the church, and then to teach them to follow Jesus. That's the kind of alpha and omega of the church's reason for being. Perhaps if you want something a bit more expansive as a way of understanding mission, a bit more broad thinking, you've got the 5 marks of mission, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. But this broad sense of what the mission of God is, proclaiming the good news, teaching, baptizing, nurturing new believers. So those first two very much in that Bible passage we just heard. Respond to human need by loving service, seek to transform unjust structures of society, challenging violence of every kind, pursuing peace, pursuing reconciliation, striving to safeguard the integrity of creation, sustaining and renewing the life of the earth. This is the mission of God, which we are invited as churches and individuals to participate in. So that is mission. But the question is, why plan for mission? If this is God's mission, if this is God's thing, why are we planning for mission? Why don't we just sort of let God do it and we'll sort of bimble along nicely? I think planning does help us to discern God's mission in our context. We are called to engage our brains, our hearts, and not just sort of go where the wind takes us or where circumstance takes us. It's good to be intentional about listening to the Spirit and about planning for that. Because if we just go with the flow, the likelihood is that the flow relates, more to what we had for breakfast or more to whoever shouts loudest in the parish than to what God is actually wanting to do. I think God is a God who values when we come to Him in quietness and listening and seeking. So planning helps us to prayerfully discern what God is doing. And actually, planning helps us not to drift. If you don't have intention, if you don't have planning, then churches, what they do is they drift into maintenance mode. They start to think purely about the finances and the buildings. And whilst those things are often kind of urgent in the short term, actually, if all your focus goes into those things, it's ultimately counterproductive because no one is going to get excited about joining the church to talk about how hard the finances are or to talk about all the challenges with maintaining the fabric of the building. That is not going to draw people in to the life of God and into encounter with Him. But that's where churches go if they don't have intention and planning around mission, because those are the day-to-day things that need to be worried about. That is a reality I see in parishes a lot of the time. So planning helps us with that intentionality, that discernment, and that real focus on what a church is there for. So what is it? We've looked at why is it? Why is there a church? Why would we plan for mission? What is mission action planning? And basically, it is a simple, prayerful, practical tool to help parishes focus on mission. I think some people see this coming on, from on high, from the diocese, and they think, oh, it's just more bureaucracy, more targets, trying to measure us. But actually, that isn't the heart behind it at all. I personally don't give a fig for any of that. I want to help churches to discern their priorities, to set achievable goals, to encourage accountability with one another, but actually also encourage celebration. When you mission action plan and you do that on a cycle, you get to really see and reflect on and linger on all the joyful stuff and all the good stuff that's happening, stuff that easily gets lost because we default to focusing on the hard stuff, on the challenging stuff. it actually helps us to celebrate, to have joy at what God is doing in our midst. However small those things might be, they are worth lingering over and delighting in. And a map should be, rather than a bureaucratic thing, a map should be a living document, not something that is fixed forever, although it does get uploaded to the diocesan portal. But it should be flexible and responsive. It's something that will change as we change priorities. Perhaps we achieve the things we set out to achieve, and then we'll say, okay, what's next? What's the update? What do we now bring in as a priority? Perhaps the circumstances of your context will change, a big housing project, something that changes what mission looks like. And so you'll revisit the map. So it's a living document. It's a flexible thing. It's not some kind of fossilized thing that goes in a cupboard. It's something that should be sitting at the dinner table with you, so to speak. Um, what it does is it gives us a solid kind of thought through skeleton of mission that we can flesh out. It will give us a sense of what our vision is, where we're going, but it's something that then can be fleshed out and changed and adapted. And I think the most important thing to say about what mission action planning is it is a means to an end. The church isn't called to mission action planning. The church is called to mission. But MAP is an effective way for many, if not most churches, to make sure that the church does do what it is there to do, to participate in God's mission. MAP really helps with that. So it's a means to an end, and that's why it's not the focus, it's not the thing that's most important. It is the tool. So hopefully, kind of that is heard as I'm saying that. So again, what is it? It's a step-by-step process. We'll be looking at these steps in a bit more detail shortly. But it's this journey of reflecting together as a church, of or maybe particular stakeholders within a church, how that leads kind of from reviewing and looking at what's gone before and what the context is, through vision and values, through forming priorities, planning activities, and then you do it, you keep doing it, you look at it again, review it, and go kind of round and round, world without end, amen. But it's not something that's sort of, it is structured, but it's also organic. It's also, it will look different for every church. So what it looks like for one church might be drastically different if that church is, say, an urban church as opposed to a rural church, or a big church as opposed to a smaller church. This is a framework, a guide. Again, it's that skeleton that we can kind of flesh out as we go. So let's think a little bit about the benefits of MAP. What difference does it make? And I think the first thing that I would say on that is it does bring clarity of purpose. It helps churches to avoid trying to do everything all at once, having a kind of a sense of what we want to do as a church and why we want to do it. There tends to be a danger that without a clear plan, other people's personal agendas or pet projects start creeping in. There might be lots of good ideas that a church wants to put in action, but actually the result of that often in churches it is people are spread really thinly across too many activities, that whilst each activity might be a really good thing to do, it doesn't actually fit with the mission of the church, the vision that the church has. So mission action planning helps bring that clarity of purpose, that sense of this is what we're here for. These are the things that matter. And likewise, it channels energy in the right direction. One of the things that I would really emphasize if I come to your church to help facilitate this process is the importance of a vision. That's a kind of key step in the MAP process. And vision drives action. In a resource scarce environment where we're struggling for volunteers or money or time, whatever it might be, well, actually, if there's something that really channels that energy that says, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, it can really help to avoid wasted energy, wasted time, frustration. Again, it keeps the main thing the main thing. Um, all churches are doing their best. All churches want to do the right thing. They want to, I hope, they want to grow, they want to flourish. Um, but there's a reality that often the main thing ceases to be the main thing. Again, as I said earlier, the sense of impending doom sometimes around finance or the state of the building, those things become the main thing. Or being nice people in the community becomes the main thing rather than a part of it or a means to something bigger. As churches, I hope, we believe that the main thing is people encountering God and encountering the love of Christ. That, I hope, is something that we would all agree with. Um, and a mission action plan helps just to remind churches that that is, in fact, why we're here. So, yeah, so clarity of purpose channels energy and keeps the main thing the main thing. What other benefits are there? Well, MAP, one of the things it really does that I've really seen as I've been out in parishes is it encourages collaboration. If the vicar doesn't decide to do it all themselves, a number of times I've been to a church and they've never seen their mission action plan because the vicar just filled in the form, put it online, and then got on with their life. But if you invite other people to participate, whether that's your PCC, members of the congregation, kind of people, key people who are interested and excited and kind of catch the vision for this, a mixture of clergy and laity. It helps a congregation, it helps a church to really take ownership of mission rather than just looking to the vicar to do anything. And if you're in a rural church where your vicar might be responsible for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 churches, actually that collaboration is so vital. That sense of owning the mission of God in this place, rather than the vicar doing the God stuff, and we receive the God stuff. The laity receive the God stuff. Um, I think we all know that the vicar being the minister in a church is both unsustainable and frankly unbiblical. You look at the model of church that you find in the Bible, everyone has a part to play. And what MAP does is it draws everyone into the process so that they get a real sense of why they might be part of this. God calling them to be part of the process, to think, to pray, to do. Um, so this collaboration that MAP fosters will help churches see that all of them are ministers, all of them need to take responsibility for the church's mission. And actually, if you go through this MAP cycle, one of the things it can do is really build confidence. You can kind of have small successes that you can name. You can say, yes, we did that. We did that by the help of God, by the work of the Spirit, but we did that. And often in church life, a good thing will happen, but it will get forgotten. It won't be reflected on because it's like, okay, we've done that, on to the next thing in our busy schedule. The MAP process of reviewing and revisiting really helps people to see, okay, there are some good things that have happened. There are some challenges, sure, there are always challenges, but there are good things, there are fruitful things in the life of this church. And as you go around the MAP process, you can kind of list them and name them. We did this as a church at St. Paul's a couple of weeks ago. We had an away day, and one of the things we did is sat down, we looked at our vision and values. We looked at the question of what has been fruitful. And we could name lots of things that we wouldn't have otherwise thought of or lingered on. And actually, we came away from that day feeling confident that yes, God is at work, and there are things that we can continue to do and continue to be involved in and continue to pray into. So a MAP process will build the confidence of a whole church. that they can do mission and ministry. And then it creates accountability. Actually, if you have regular review, if you take the MAP process seriously, if you have a slot in your PCC meetings that is about mission in the parish and the mission action plan, actually it keeps mission central. It ensures that if someone is responsible for a given priority, then actually they're held to account on that in a positive way. They're reminded of their responsibility that they've taken on. I don't know if you've been at a PCC meeting or sort of a ministry team meeting where some great exciting idea is discussed, and then maybe 3 PCCs later, a discussion is had that goes something like, "Oh, didn't we have that great idea? Yeah, wait, who was going to do something about that?" And then the sort of tumbleweed blows through as the secretary rifles through old minutes trying to find out what on earth was said and whether anyone took responsibility. So MAP brings clarity of purpose. It channels energy. It keeps the main thing the main thing. It encourages collaboration, builds confidence, and creates accountability. So I think those are some pretty good reasons to do this, to do this process of mapping mission. But there will be those who resist that sense of not another form. Does it really change anything? What's the point? We're all doomed. We don't have the people, the money, the time. Mission can't be reduced to a plan. And I think when you have those kind of voices, if you're a vicar or a leader in a church and you're thinking, yes, okay, I can see that there are some potential benefits from this process, but I know my people are going to groan and resist. One of the things I would say is, by all means, give myself or Kate a call, drop us an email. We can come and encourage people to go on this journey. We can kind of back you up on the value of it. We can come and do a presentation at a PCC meeting if that's helpful. Because I think all of these challenges, all of these objections, they can be overcome. I think sometimes with the "we're all doomed, what's the point?" People see where they are and where they want to get to, and the gap is so big that they feel hopeless. Whereas I think saying to people, actually, if we sit down and we plan this out, if we look at this holistically, maybe there's a way forward. Maybe it's baby steps, but maybe there's a way forward. I think sometimes it's just about gently convincing people that actually it's worth a go. There's no guarantees, but it's worth a go, and it's worked for other churches. So maybe it's worth trying. I think emphasizing in terms of not another form, emphasizing that it is an organic process. It is a process that's kind of, it will be driven by the vicar and the other people who are involved and myself or Kate, exploring together what the lay of the land is, exploring together what is the territory we need to explore here, what are the things that are going to be helpful. It's not about filling in a form at the end, as much as it's useful for us to, not just useful, but joyful for us to see what is going on. Mission can't be reduced to a plan, but without a plan, mission will just sort of wander off into the distance or get squashed underneath all the other business. And MAP does change things. Many churches have grown, have flourished, have made mission part of the heart of what they do through this process. And this isn't something that just the Diocese of St Albans does. This is something that happens widely across the Church of England. And it's still a useful tool. I think it's been around for a while now, but I don't think it's a dated thing. I think it's something that can still continue to be really useful. But if you find that your people are resistant and they have some of these points, these perspectives, do by all means give us a call, and we're happy to kind of help prepare the ground for this activity. So how actually, just going back quickly to the kind of cynicism that we're all doomed, what's the point? I just want to make 2 observations from recent reports. One from the Bible Society Quiet Revival report, where they see an increasing openness to faith. Uh, and I'd say, actually, that's really exciting. There's been such a negative mindset towards church and the possibility of people coming to church and meeting God over the last few decades, really. But we are now seeing a shift culturally. It used to be, perhaps kind of 90s onwards, people would say, I'm spiritual. And when they said I'm spiritual, they meant I'll try anything but Christianity. I'll try crystals, I'll try Buddhism, I'll try anything that's out there. I'll give it a go, I'll have a dabble. Do you want to try Jesus? Oh no, I don't want to do that. Because Christianity was sort of the establishment religion and people were kicking against it. I think we've lost our place in society sufficiently that people no longer have the same need to kick against the church. Some people do. Older generations perhaps are still in that mindset, but actually increasingly younger generations, they are looking for hope, they are looking for meaning. And actually the Christian faith is a viable place to go to look for that. So there is reason for hope culturally around the Christian faith at the moment. I don't think we are doomed. I think people are seeking to have encounter with God, and that can look like different things in different churches. But we have something to offer that people once again are starting to become interested in. So I would encourage you to not feel that we're all doomed, but to say actually there's these shoots of growth, there's these possibilities, there's these hopes emerging. And the second is from a What's in Our Hands Rural Mission Learning Review, which is possibly the least exciting title. But one of the things they drew out of that was dream small. Dream small. Not come up with some massive plan that's going to change everything, but you can't actually do because you don't have the time and the resources. But dream small. What is the small thing that your church could do that might make a difference, that is worth at the very least giving a go? And that to me is hopeful. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to do something dramatic and headline making. We're dreaming small. As part of that, there's the notion of what's in your fridge. So rather than thinking, here's the recipe we need to make, gosh, we don't have the ingredients, opening up your fridge, looking at your church and thinking, what do we have and what can we do with what we have? And actually, if you go that direction, if you say, what do we have and what can we do with it, rather than what do we need to do and how can we kind of make it happen, actually, again, that's really hopeful. And a map process can help you sort of think through what's in your fridge, what can you do with what you actually have. So yeah, I think it's a positive and exciting process that I commend to you wholeheartedly. And if you're not convinced, drop me an email or give me a call. So how? This will be a relatively short webinar because I'd love to have further conversations with you. But let's look now at the how. Principles for a fruitful map process. And what I would say, and I hope this wouldn't get too much dissent, but is pray. Pray again. Pause in the middle of the process, pray some more, and then pray to close. And then when you come back to it at the next meeting, pray again. Because this is about discernment. Verse from the Bible, I can't remember where because I'm terrible with chapter and verse, but unless the Lord builds the house, the workers labor in vain. We need God's involvement. We need God to be in it. We need we want to do what God wants. We want to follow his will. So if you want this process to be fruitful, pray. And praying also can help sort of just pull people away from their own agendas. If you just let people loose to have a conversation, very often they'll end up kind of focusing on their pet things. But actually, if we repeatedly stop to pray, it just draws everyone back to having a focus on God. So pray, pray, pray as part of the process. Trust that God will be in it if we look to him. Share ownership. Involve the whole congregation, or perhaps more sensibly, involve as many kind of engaged stakeholders as possible. Pick out those people who have got energy, have got excitement. They may not be on your PCC, they may be quite new. Um, but who are those people that you think, okay, there's a fresh energy, there's the possibility of something new, something interesting. See if you can draw those people into the process. The more people that are engaged, that are in the process, the more buy-in there's going to be, the more likely it is that people will really get it and catch it and run with it. So do not, if you're a vicar, do not try and do this yourself and then just present it to the PCC for approval. Do a process with the PCC. Plan the journey. I used to work on a building site, and the motto that that people kept saying over and over again was measure twice, cut once. In other words, good preparation makes everything run more efficiently and stops wastage in the long run. If you have a bit of investment at the start in planning, which PCCs to discuss this at, when to have an away day, who will be responsible for what do we need to look at? Actually, if you put all of that, if you front load all of that work, all of that kind of preparation, then actually the process will be smoother and more coherent and will run really well. So don't be afraid to really take some time to plan that journey before you get started. When it comes to forming priorities for mission, which we'll do in step 4 of the process, so to speak, keep it simple. I've seen churches where they have sort of 20 different things that they're planning to do, 2, 3, maximum 4 or 5. There's only so many things a church can really focus on and remember at a given time. There might be 20 things that your church needs to do in due course, but actually take a few first, make progress on them, and then when you come to the next map review, whether that's after 6 months or a year or 3 years, however long that needs to look for you, then you might want to move on to the next set of priorities. But don't try and do everything all at once. Keep it simple, keep it brief. Celebrate progress. I've said this already, but that is one of the most important things you can do. Thank God, encourage each other. This will stir people's enthusiasm. People want to be part of things where they can see the value and the fruit. So keep MAP on the agenda so you can keep celebrating progress. I would say to any church, every PCC meeting have a slot for your MAP. Even if it's just yep, this is going well, have that slot there to keep it on the agenda. And review it regularly, because it is a journey, it's not a one-off. Don't wait for me to get in touch with you and say, oh, it's time for you to renew, your MAP is going to be out of date. Make it something that you choose to review regularly. And then lastly, make use of your friendly neighborhood church growth officer. I know there is sometimes some skeptical from people about people who work from the diocese, but I would just say we love what we do. We want to see churches grow. We can be that outside set of eyes, that person who can come in and maybe say the things that it's hard to say, cheer you on, whatever. Make use of us. That's what we're there for. And I'd much rather be kind of at your church than sitting at my desk researching church growth or something like that. So make use of us, give us a call, even if it's just to see what use we might be to you. And just to close, I want us to take a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the stages of the MAP process, just to flesh out a little bit more about what that looks like. As I've said, it helps churches be intentional, focused, encouraged. Number 1, getting started. This is the kind of bit where you gather a group, you gather the people who are enthused or who are important stakeholders. You pray, dream big or small, depending on where you're at as church. Clarify purpose, build trust, secure buy-in. Explain that MAP is a tool that God can use in conjunction with your discernment to get a church moving in a positive direction. It's not a box-ticking exercise. Part of the getting started might be helping people to understand what the mission of God is. If you need resources around the 5 marks of mission, or you'd like someone to come in and help your churches think through what is a church there for, we can do that as part of stage 1. Stage 2 is review. If you've done a previous MAP, would you review that? But failing that, reviewing your context, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, listening to the church, listening to the community, mapping the community, uh, and obviously listening to God. This is the stage where we sort of ask, where are we now? And that listening gives us a solid foundation for shaping the future. Stage 3, forming vision and values. Where is God calling us to go? That's kind of what vision is all about. It's a picture of the future that inspires us, that makes us want to be involved, but that also feels realistic. And we can name our values, what we stand for, how to live that out. How do we live into God's vision for the church? Vision is very much a compass. It's pointing us in the right direction. It's holding us steady. As St. Paul's, our vision is lives transformed by the light and love of Christ. And we will mention that again and again and again in sermons, in meetings, during the service. And so this stage of forming the vision, forming the values, seeking God in that is so important, because kind of that is what all the work and the activity of the church flows through. So that's a really important stage in the journey that's not to be rushed through. And yeah, forming priorities, where to start, what to stop, what to stop, what to continue, balancing ambition with realism, focusing energy on the areas that are bearing fruit or things that we really need to change in order that they bear fruit. And again, pray into that, ask God to lay on your heart the things that could be priorities. Then having formed the priorities, okay, well, how are we going to go about doing this? This is where things like SMART goals come in. If you're not sure what that is, don't worry about it. I can kind of explain more about that another time. But basically, the SMART goals are about making sure that what we're doing is realistic, is achievable, that there's someone responsible for it, that there's a time scale for it. It helps us to actually act on these things by asking, who's going to do it, what are they going to do, when are they going to do it by, and how is that going to happen? And again, pray, and then move from paper to practice. Kind of go for it, give it a go, celebrate progress, make mistakes, fall flat on your face, adapt as needed, and again, pray, persevere prayerfully together. And then the last sort of stage in that process, which is really, in a sense, the same as stage 2, if you've already done a map, is review it, celebrate, learn, adapt, renew a commitment, keep the map as a living document, as I've said. So I think that's really all that I will say today. Just a reminder, you can get in touch with either myself or Kate. We can introduce the idea of mission planning, action planning to your parishes. We can run sessions, either in PCCs or as away days. We can do sort of a 2-stage away day. There's lots of different options depending on where you're at as a church. And also we can just meet with you as a leader, if you are a leader, and be a sounding board for you to bounce ideas off of. So I think that's everything. Unless there are any questions at this point, I don't think I've seen any questions popping up. So I think what I'm going to do is just close in prayer. So let's pray. Lord God, you are a God of mission. You have a mission for the whole world to know your love. And you call us as your church to be part of that. So Lord, I pray for any and every church that is thinking through these issues at the moment. Would you guide and steer? Would you help people to discern? Would you stir enthusiasm in churches for all that you want to do? And we ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. So thank you for watching. I appear to have been blinded out by the sun here, but it's been good to share some thoughts on mission action planning, and I hope that some of you will take this on and run with it. So God bless, and I hope to hear from you soon.